All right, some really good news coming out of our states. There have been 14 state treasurers that have actually now signed on to a letter warning the banks. The banks, last week, they received a letter, $600 billion in assets from the states. They take in money from taxes, et cetera, and they put them in these banks. And they said they are going to take all of that money if the financial institutions embrace corporate wokeism and prohibit financing of the fossil fuel industry. This is the main point of Build Back Better. Build Back Better is being led by the banking authority and the investment firms. So they know that they can do it without the government if the government pressures these businesses, these banks, to sign on to this. They'll make a lot of money, and they'll make things all green and all social justice, and it will be a utopia because they will destroy any of the businesses that disagree with them. So they are now not financing new oil refineries, new energy projects. They're not financing the Keystone Oil Pipeline. The government is in bed now with the banks and soon the insurance companies, and you won't be able to do business. Gun owners, you're not going to have a store that is going to be able to afford the insurance or get the loans to be able to buy an inventory so you can have guns. Your gun manufacturer is not going to be able to have a bank that will provide transactions for them. This is what's happening. Now, this is being led by West Virginia Republican Treasurer Riley Moore, and he's got 14 state treasurers on board right now. They promised a collective action in the form of economic boycotts. Just as each state represented in this letter is unique in its own governing laws and economy, our action will take different forms. However, the overarching objective of our actions will be the same: to protect our state's economies, jobs, and energy independence from these unwarranted attacks on our critical infrastructure and industries. So far, they have the state treasurers from Arizona, Arkansas, Idaho, Louisiana, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Carolina, South Dakota, Utah, Wyoming, Alabama, Texas, and Kentucky, in addition to West Virginia. Now, the left is saying, well, there's 22 Republican states. How come you only have 14? This is no big deal. This is the beginning of this. When I talked to the 22 attorney generals, they were having their annual meeting, and the Republican attorney generals were there. And I talked to them about the Great Reset, and I told them what was happening with the banking system. Most of them, I would say half of them, didn't know anything about this. They had heard things, but they weren't really sure what it was. And when I explained the banking system, they perked up and were like, wait, and told them, look, it is up to the attorney generals. And I didn't say the state treasurers, but this is a brilliant plan. It is up to the individual states. If we don't stand together, we will fall. And this is a really good thing. So if you live in a Republican state, you need to call your state treasurer's office and your governor's office and ask them why they are not signing on to this financial letter with West Virginia. You can find the letter online. I'll tweet it out. Stu, can you just tweet it out from me? We'll tweet it out so you can read it. But they are not going to put your tax dollars in any of these banks who are going along with the ESG nonsense when it comes to oil and gas. I think it should be expanded. I think there should be oil and gas and any other constitutionally legal operation. I mean, the banks won't do business with these pot places. They won't take the money. That's caused a lot of problems. Well, I can kind of understand that because it's not settled, but somebody needs to settle this. Is this legal or not legal? Right now, the state and the federal government are arguing about it. Settle it. And if it's going to be legal, which it's going to be, if it's going to be legal, then the banks should have to be able, should be forced to take that money and treat them just like any other legal business. Period. These giant corporations are gonna kill us if we don't stand together. This is a state boycott again. The states Arizona, Arkansas, Idaho, Louisiana, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Carolina, South Dakota, Utah, Wyoming, Alabama, Texas, Kentucky, and West Virginia are all in on this and have already signed the letter. If your state wasn't included in that, call your state treasurer right now. Call your governor's office. Call the head of your GOP in that state and say, why aren't you doing this? Get on board with this. Because ESG is changing absolutely everything.
Really is, and it's affecting all sorts of different things.
It's why we're paying so much money for gas.
Yeah. This is a good example, Glenn. This is a story in the New York Times that came out the other day about Europe now revisiting their nuclear power stance as climate deadlines loom. And
so wait. What is their stance? They're for it or against it?
Because they were for it at one point.
Okay, yeah.
France famously has 80% of their power from nuclear. And then they turned against it, I don't know, maybe a decade or so ago.
Because of
dumb environmentalist pressure, even though
it's the cleanest and safest energy source we have ever developed as man.
Full stop. It's that clear. And so it should be something that they should embrace. And it's one of those things that the conservatives have generally embraced too. I mean, it's exciting, right? The idea to have an unlimited amount of power that we don't have to depend on anyone else for is a pretty great thing, not to mention any of the climate benefits that might come out of it.
Correct.
So
you're not serious about climate control and climate change. You're not serious about it if you don't add nuclear energy as the top idea that we need to pursue.
Easiest way to sort out a real environmentalist from someone who's just playing politics, right?
You could stop all coal tomorrow, and not have a blip as long as you've built the nuclear power plants. You build the nuclear power plants, we don't ever need coal. Sorry, West Virginia and Pennsylvania.
Now, you go back to when we were building the nuclear power plants, it's ancient technology to what they could do now. I mean, it really is. So part of this story talks about how they're coming up with these new technologies and they want to implement them. And what's interesting about it is they can't seem to pull the trigger on this. And it's because essentially of a version of what you're talking about and have been talking about, ESG standards. France and a bunch of other Eastern European countries, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, Romania, they want the European Union, this overarching group that sits above all of them for decision-making purposes, to classify nuclear energy as sustainable and a sustainable investment. If they are to do that, it flips a switch. And it would unlock billions of euros in state aid and investment from pension funds, banks, and other investors seeking to put money in environmental causes.
Correct.
So from day one to day two, nuclear power doesn't get any better or any worse for the environment. But if the ESG standards say, hey, now we think we're going to classify it as a sustainable investment, the environmental profile has not changed here. They're just flipping a switch and saying, no, it's not sustainable. Yes, it is sustainable. When that happens, all of this money can flow into it. So the European Union is controlling billions and billions and billions of dollars in investment basically on a dumb piece of paper that changes the classification of nuclear energy.
And that is exactly what's going to happen. And think of the corruption. Think of the corruption. Your politicians will
You're
be
begging for it. You're begging for corruption.
Your politicians will be in control of all investment dollars based on how they define racial equity, how they define environmental equity, sustainability. If they want to put a carve out, then that industry suddenly is going to be fine. If they're not friendly to that industry, they will destroy that industry. And it won't make any sense. This is all corrupt. All of this is corrupt.
And it gives you the appearance of a quote-unquote free market of investment when it's not a free market of investment. It's being directed by the government, and in this case, not even the country's government, but above that with the European Union. And you think Brexit was a bad idea. I mean, you want to get, this is how you are able to pull yourself out of these decisions.
So, Omarova, who, because of this audience, according to a couple of senators, because of this audience, you knew about Omarova, the woman that was going to be the comptroller of our Treasury. We talked about that a lot. You reacted to it, and you woke senators up, and she has been denied her position in the Biden cabinet.
And not just Republican senators, but Democratic senators.
Yes.
This audience woke up with that.
Four of them.
I thought it was 5. It might have been
was it?
5 total, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So just so you know, the kind of thing that she was advocating for and the Biden administration is advocating for is that Congress would delegate a golden share responsibility to federal agencies. I don't know if Congress has to do that if we don't get our federal agencies under control. A golden share responsibility to federal agencies, which she defined as a wide range of legal arrangements giving the government special, exclusive, and non-transferable corporate governance rights in privately owned businesses. So in other words, if a business says, no, we are going to build another factory, we're going to be making more of this, whatever it is, and the government doesn't like it, the government has a golden share, and it overrides the shareholders and the board of directors. So it can basically say, no, you're not doing that anymore. Whatever whim there is. This is the definition of corporate fascism. It's really dangerous. If your state is not on that list, this is a great fight to have. This is the states, and your local city should be doing the same. You should be doing the same. If you still have your money in one of the big 5 banks, you need to pull that money out. Do it today. Pull your money out and tell them why, and put it into a local bank, locally owned and operated. You have to do that now. Send them the message, you're not doing any of this with my money. If we all stood together, we could change things overnight.